we see a very common cycle in email campaigns where people embark upon campaigns, and it takes 3 sends for the email campaign to die. And what typically happens, and we see this time and time again, is that people put all their energies into the first newsletter in the campaign, and it's fantastic. It's full of new content, it's refreshing, it's interesting, it's thought-provoking, it's inspiring, and all those other words. And so when people receive that email, they're interested in it, they're inspired by it, their thoughts are provoked by it, and they love it. So the open rate is really high. And we're looking at the tool at the back end, and it's showing us lots of people have opened, lots of people have clicked. But then in month 2, we send out the next newsletter, and actually not much has changed in our business since then. There's not really that much new content that we can put in. So we maybe think up 1 or 2 articles that are new, but then we repeat some of the articles that we used last time perhaps. And we send the email out, but the open rate is really high. So after 2 sends, we're all patting ourselves on the back. We're email marketing professionals. And then what happens is we send out email number 3, and the opens just nosedive. And then people end up examining the 3rd email, thinking, what did we do wrong in this 3rd email? Of course, the answer is, well, nothing. You lost people in the 2nd one. Everybody opened the 2nd one because they thought it was great content in the 1st, and were disappointed with what they found. So the likelihood that they'll pick up with the 3rd one is that much lower. And that happens so frequently. And it's really difficult to turn people around. Once you've lost them like that, it's hard to get them back, really hard. So what I'm saying is, if you don't have fresh, new, interesting content to say every month, then don't. Maybe you'd be better focusing on a quarterly delivery. It's only 4 hits a year, but I'd rather be read 4 times a year than twice and then never again. It's just so important to get that right. And it's different for everybody. If you're a financial advisor investing advising people on investments, that environment changes constantly. So stock share prices are changing every day, every hour, every minute, if you like. So maybe you're sending out a monthly communication that keeps your investor community up to date with the latest deals, the latest offers, and that's appropriate in that environment. I always tell a story of a lady that came on one of our workshops where we had this conversation about frequency, and she said, I send my email every day. And right. And basically, no, it's I'm right behind you. 2 minutes. But what we're saying here, she said, I send my email every day, and we're thinking, well, why is that? Everybody was astonished and astounded. How ridiculous. And she went on to explain that she was a life coach, and she was a lovely lady, a real wit, very sharp-witted, very amusing, very funny. And her email every day was just a thought for the day. It was a one-liner. Sometimes it was amusing, sometimes a bit thought-provoking. But I can imagine her community of readers actually seeing that pop into the inbox and thinking, oh, I'll open that. I know it's only going to take me 5 seconds to read it. And it would set them off in their day with a spring in the step or what have you. And it worked particularly well for her. So it's an absolutely critical point, this. And as it says at the bottom, email your contacts often enough that you don't lose touch with them, but don't hound them. Don't confuse that. And lots of people do that. Send another email out. We haven't got any business. We need some more leads. But we did one yesterday. Send another one. And it happens all the time, and people damage their credibility. People switch off, and it's hard as nails to get them back again. Worth mentioning data cleansing. Now, this is a big issue in communicating via email because email address churn is particularly high. It's reckoned that about 20 to 30% of email addresses go bad year on year. So if I'd bought 5,000 email addresses from a list broker 2 years ago, or acquired that list somehow, it's likely that over 50 or 60% of those could be bad. Why is that a problem? Well, if you're using a tool, as many of them do, that charge by the weight of emails that you send, you'd pay anyway. If you're outsourcing your email marketing, you'll probably pay for the number of emails that you're sending, whether they get through or not. If you're sending emails out through your own mail systems, the consequences could be actually quite dire. Because if you get a high bounce back rate, that will flag up to your ISP. Obviously, the ISP is your conduit to the internet through which your own emails travel. And I'm sure many of you will know that spam activity is typically about sending out high volume emails that aren't likely to succeed. So a spammer will use an algorithm to click a button and in minutes generate 10 million email addresses, and they'll fire them out there to these email addresses that may or may not exist. And of course 9,999,000 will bounce, but that means that 1,000 of them got through somewhere, and that list is then sold on the internet to spammers, people that want to sell medicines, porn, mortgages, whatever it is. That's no slight on the mortgage community as well. It just so happens that those are the three areas. It's loan sharks, really. Don't be offended, mortgage people. So, the problem there, of course, is that the spam activity generates a significant proportion of bounce backs. And if you start sending out emails from your own mail systems to dirty lists, if you like, and you start to get quite a lot of bounce backs yourself, your ISP may think you're a spammer and they can blacklist you and shut down your connection. And it's quite a nasty place to be. There's no internet connection in your business. There's nobody can send or receive email, and you can extricate yourself from that situation. But it's awkward to do. You've to go cap in hand to your ISP and explain what you were doing, and try and talk your way out of it. But it can be time-consuming, costly, and not a nice place to be. So it's worth regarding the data cleansing as a key challenge, something that you need to be mindful of. And I know it's easy for me to talk about, but it's more difficult to do something about. But it is about having some kind of process. There are tools that you can use to help with list cleansing. If you've got a list that is essentially a clean list that was permission based, that you just want to test it to remove any email addresses that no longer work, you can download tools, things like Live Email Verifier, Glock. There are various tools on the internet you can download to use that to test, but be very sparing and only use these tools with lists that you own that are generally permission based. Otherwise, the use of them in itself could flag up to your ISP. But otherwise, maybe it's just about recognizing the issue and building in a process of data cleansing. Many of the email marketing tools actually have a double opt-in feature whereby every time they send an email, they invite the recipient to either opt out or change the information that you've recorded about them. One of the things that we see with business emails particularly is that the email addresses don't always fail, but the people behind them change. So if you'd have sent an email 6 months ago to sales@Bluebird CRM, the lady that would have answered the email at that time, in our business, a girl called Rachel, left the business and she went off on maternity leave. So if you send that email to the same address now, it'll be picked up by Nicola. So Nicola's opening the emails and receiving the newsletters that Rachel signed up for. So the double opt-in feature allows Nicola to click on a link within the email and change the name from Rachel to Nicola, and change her preferences from horses, handbags and shoes to motorbikes, piercings and tattoos, or whatever she might be interested in. So in that way you can sort of outsource the cleansing of the data back to the recipients using this double opt-in technology. And beyond that, it's often a simple process of building into your modus operandi a means by which to check data. I know what we do is every time we speak to a customer on a sales call or service call, we'll always end the conversation with, "Oh, and by the way, are you still bob@hotmail.com?" So we'll just build it into our process to keep validating and checking the email address. If people log onto your website, I bank with the Royal Bank of Scotland, and I noticed the other day when I log on, as soon as I cleared authentication, the first page that comes up invites me to check my email address and change it if I need to. So it's building in processes like that that help you keep the data clean, but regard it as significant.